What up, guys? Your boy Quake, and Drake has officially broken an insane amount of records by releasing ICEMAN, Habibti, and Maid of Honor at the same time. So let's go over all these records, who he surpassed, and what some of these records mean. The first record I want to talk about is him being the first artist to debut 3 albums in the top 3, first, second, and third. This is an interesting record because no other artist has done it besides Michael Jackson, but Michael Jackson didn't debut his 3 albums. The week after he passed away, 3 of his albums ended up in the top 3. So they weren't new albums like Drake's. Drake just released 3 brand new ones at the same time and had the first, second, and third slot. This record is impressive, but any artist, I think, in their prime could have done this. But because of the times that certain artists were really in their prime, they couldn't do it. Basically, you know, like Eminem in his prime could have released 3 albums and did 1, 2, and 3 easily. But back then it was physical CDs. You know, it would cost a lot more money to convince a label to release 3 albums at once, would just be a huge gamble. In today's time with streaming, you know, it makes that a lot easier. So I do believe a lot of artists like 50 Cent when he was in his prime, Kanye West, Lil Wayne, you know, there's quite a few rappers or even just artists in general that could have done this, but because of the CD thing, I think that's why nobody really ever tried to do it. The streaming thing made that a lot easier. That record really isn't insanely impressive. I do feel if artists attempted it, they could have done that. What's the most impressive thing about this record is Drake is doing this 16 years into his career. That is insane. Think about that. Most artists' careers last maybe 4 to 6 years if they're lucky. This guy is 16 years in. He didn't do this in the prime of his career when he was dropping Scorpion and Views and doing 700,000 first week and 1 million first week. He did it 16 years later after a rap battle where a lot of people considered him completely washed and done because Kendrick had his moment. He did it right after that. He decided, hey, I'm going to take this gamble and just drop 3 albums and be the first artist to have the first, second, and third spot on the Billboard charts, which is crazy. You know, that's the really, really impressive part to me is the context behind him doing this is after the battle and 16 years into his career. Because if he would have done this in his prime, it would have been like, cool. So to me, that was the most impressive thing, but that's the first record that he broke, which is crazy in itself. So let's go to the next record. The next record he's broke is now he is the official male soloist with the most #1 hit records, surpassing Michael Jackson officially. Of course, this was going to come in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Eventually, this was going to happen, no doubt about it. And I just have one gripe with this, and I'll talk about that. But he has officially surpassed Michael Jackson for male artists. Now, let's go over the artists that have the most #1s, period. So the group, the Beatles, have 20 #1 hits. Mariah Carey has 19, Rihanna has 14, Taylor Swift has 14, and Drake has 14. So they're all tied at 14 with Rihanna, Taylor Swift, and Drake. And what's funny is Rihanna and Drake actually share 2 of those songs. 2 of those records are actually Rihanna's, What's My Name, and I forget the other one. But yeah, those 2 are kind of between Drake and Rihanna. And then you got Michael Jackson at 13, Madonna at 12, the Supremes at 12, Whitney Houston at 11, and then Janet Jackson, Bruno Mars, and Stevie Wonder at 10. So Drake is the official highest when it comes to a male solo artist, which is a huge accomplishment. He's only 16 years into music, so I think he's still got a lot in him, and he might become the #1 overall, you know, in the next, 10 years. Can he produce another 6 #1 hits? Possibly. Now, here's my gripe with this. The only gripe I have is some of Drake's #1 hits didn't stay at the #1 spot like long at all. They usually stay there for 1 week and then just completely fell off. And that's a huge deal because does that really make it a huge hit record? Or is it because of streaming and because of hype that when an artist drops a record, all of a sudden people are interested in it and it goes #1 and then falls off? That's kind of the issue with streaming is that you can not easily because not every artist is doing it. So I can't say that. That's a wrong word to use. But if you're a big artist and you have like momentum or some type of interest around you and you drop a song, it can go #1 fairly quickly because of streaming. Back then, you would have to work your way. Like Michael Jackson with You Are Not Alone was the first artist to debut a #1 song on the Billboard Hot 100 ever. And that's just with radio play and music videos being played. Not with streaming, which is a lot easier in today's time. Now, these are Drake's number ones, and I'm going to go over them, and I'm going to tell you which ones I feel like are just there and didn't really last, and people didn't really care about them. They just came and went, but they ended up at the number one spot. So What's My Name? Obviously, huge record. Work, Rihanna, huge record. One Dance, huge record. God's Plan, huge record. In My Feelings, huge. Nice for What, huge. Tootsie Slide is one of those records where it just went a number one because it was a TikTok dance quick, and then it fell off. Then you got What's Next, which I can't even remember this track. I'm going to be honest with you, man. So that's another one that went to number one. Way Too Sexy as well. Wait For You is a great one. Jimmy Cooks. Slime You Out is another one where it's just like, it is what it is. That record just landed there. First Person Shooter, I believe, stayed at number one for 2 weeks or more. And then the new record, Genesis, STFU. So we'll see where that goes, if it stays at number one, if it starts to fall off at number one. But there's like at least 4 to 5 tracks that are number ones that people, I don't know, I never really hear people play them anymore. People don't really care about them. They just kind of debuted at number one and fell off at number one. Let's go over that. Let's actually see, what tracks stayed at number one, what tracks didn't. And that'll tell you, kind of give you more context of what are actually, to me, what actually are number one records are records that stay at the number one spot for at least 2 weeks or more. The first week, because of streaming, I don't really care because some artists debut there and then they just fall off and then nobody cares about the song anymore. But if you can stay there for a second week, third week, fourth week, whatever, at least 2 weeks, then I think that's a real number one record to me. So if you look at Drake's number one history, you got Wait For You, Future. It stayed at number one for only 1 week. But that was a huge, huge song. I kept hearing it everywhere, at least in my opinion. So that stayed at number one for only 1 week. You got Work with Rihanna, stayed at number one for 9 weeks. See, that's a real number one. You got One Dance for Drake, staying at number one for 10 weeks. That's a real number one to me. God's Plan, you stayed at number one for 11 weeks. To me, that's a real number one. Like when they stay for a long time at number one, to me, that's a real, hit record. You got Nice for What, staying there at 8 weeks at number one. You got Jimmy Cook, stayed at number one for only 1 week. You got In My Feelings, staying at number one for 10 weeks. So there's a lot of Drake songs that went number one that only stayed there for a week. And it's like, those are just records that I think hype was there. People were interested. They got streamed really well the first week. And then after that, people just stopped caring about them. So let's go over the Slime You Out is only 1 week. What's Next is only 1 week. Tootsie Slide was only 1 week. Way Too Sexy was only 1 week. First Person Shooter was only 1 week. What's My Name with Drake and Rihanna was only 1 week. Jimmy Cooks was only 1 week. So he's got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 songs, not including Janice, that stayed at number one for only 1 week. So, but you got to think, he's got a lot of number 2 records too, man. Number 3 as well. Like at number 2, you got Life Is Good, Hotline Bling, which is crazy. Hotline Bling was all over the place. That should have been an actual number one. So there's a few records that Drake had that should have landed at the number one spot. Best I Ever Had, that was all over the place. So, these charts are kind of just interesting. I think streaming has kind of skewed things a little bit. But let's go to Michael Jackson and see how long his number ones actually stayed at number one. Okay, so you got Billie Jean, stayed at number one for 7 weeks. Beat It, stayed at number one for 3 weeks. You got Rock With You, stayed at number one for 4 weeks. Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, stayed at number one for only 1 week. Okay, so that's fair. You got Say, Paul McCartney, Michael Jackson, stayed at number one for 6 weeks. Black or White, stayed at number one for 7 weeks. You're Not Alone, stayed at number one for 1 week. The Way You Make Me Feel, stayed at number one for 1 week. Man in the Mirror, stayed at number one for 2 weeks. Ben, stayed at number one for 1 week. Dirty Diana, number one 1 week. I Just Can't Stop Loving You, number one 1 week. And then Bad, number one 1 week. So let's go over how many he has that stayed at number one for only 1 week. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 out of 13. So he's, give or take, the same as Drake. Drake has a little bit more, but, I view it as like, I would hope the record stays a little bit longer, but hey, at the end of the day, man, number one is number one. There's nothing you can say or, do about that. It is what it is. I just feel like in today's time, maybe because the music is moving so quickly, that records just kind of go there because of streaming and then just kind of fall off. Maybe the debuting at number one has been a lot easier, but everything else, I don't know, I feel like it's been formulaic in a way in today's time, but hey, Michael had a couple records, only stayed at number one for a couple weeks or 1 week as well. There's a debate on that, but at the end of the day, man, Drake surpassed him, whether you like it or not. I'm happy for him. I feel like some of the records, though, don't impact as much as Michael's. But it is what it is, man. Some of the Michael Jackson records, too, they don't like really impact like that anyways. You know, I Just Can't Stop Loving You, I didn't really care for that much. Ben, which is, you know, a song he released as a kid, I don't really care for that much. Say, 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 Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson, I don't really care for. So there's a few records there and there, but at the end of the day, it's opinion, right? Some people might love Tootsie Slide. Some people might love whatever the Sexy For You, whatever the record's called, Way Too Sexy. So to me, it's just all about your opinion at the end of the day, but Drake broke that record. Whether you like it or not, Drake broke the record, and he's got a lot of number 2 records and number 3 as well. So you can't just say, oh, he's only got the number 1 because of this. Like, there's a few records, like I said, Hotline Bling, best I ever had, that should have been number 1s, but just stopped at number 2. So it is what it is, but that record's broken as well, which is crazy. Then he broke the record for being the rapper with the most number 1 albums ever at 15, which is surpassing Jay-Z, who held that record at number 14. Drake did this in 16 years. Jay-Z, I believe, had 20-something years, because Jay-Z basically came out in 1996 and then stopped releasing. His last like solo album was 2017. So you're looking at about 21 years of a career. He did 14 number 1 albums. And they're including, I think, collab albums, which they're including with Drake as well. So, you know, Drake did it in about 5 years less, 6 years less than Jay-Z did in terms of like time span. But then also Drake, you know, was releasing albums year after year, sometimes 2 albums in a year. And then, you know, so Drake was just working a lot harder. So he completed it about 6 years earlier than Jay-Z did. And, you know, people are going to have comparisons and be like, oh, but Jay-Z's albums are way better. Like, all that at the end of the day is your opinion. If Drake didn't have classic music and classic albums, then this next record I'm about to be talking about, he wouldn't be accomplishing. And this next record is insane. And this might actually be the craziest record out of all of them. Drake currently right now, simultaneously, has 12, yes, you heard me right, 12 albums on the Billboard 200 charting. So if Drake didn't make classic albums and classic music, this wouldn't have been possible. So these are the 12 albums, obviously including ICEMAN, Habibti, and Maid of Honor at number 1, 2, and 3. You have Take Care at number 25, Views at number 40, Some Sexy Songs for You with Party Next Door at number 55, Scorpion at number 65, Certified Lover Boy at number 69, number 81, Thank Me Later, number 96, For All the Dogs, number 130, More Life, and then number 167, Nothing Was the Same. People that are saying like, oh, he has music that's microwavable, McDonald's music, those albums wouldn't be charting. An album that came out with Take Care at number 25 in the year of 2011 would not be charting at number 25. It's literally a top 40 album right now. And that album came out, what? You want to say 15 years ago, whatever the years. Views as well, 2016 album. Scorpion, a 2018 album. Certified Lover Boy, 2021. Thank Me Later, which is a 2010 album. Nothing Was the Same, a 2013 album. Like, you know, if Drake didn't have classics and classic music, he wouldn't be able to do that at the end of the day. So, you know, there's a lot of people that are shitting on his records and just saying this guy is just microwavable McDonald's. And I sound like a straight up Drake defender. I'm a fan of Drake, Kendrick Lamar. I'm a fan of just great music. So I have to like kind of just, be like, this is the situation, whether you like it or not. Some people just hate Drake just because they hate him. It's not that they hate the music. They just hate him because they don't like the person, which it is what it is. And they just don't like that he's breaking all these records. That's, you know, it's the next person that comes and breaks Drake's records. If there is a person like a Drake that comes and does those, they're going to hate him as well. They're going to be like, no, but Drake was way better. You know, like, that's just how it goes. It is what it is. I mean, we're seeing it with Michael Jordan, LeBron James. We're seeing it with all kinds of people where there's records being broken, there's things being done, and people just hate it because they like that person that broke that record originally. And that's just, it is what it is. I don't know. That's how some humans are. Continuing on these records that he broke, first artist ever to debut 10 songs at the number 1 on the Hot 100, which is insane. But I think streaming has helped that a lot. Like I said, it's easier to debut records now with streaming. Biggest streaming debut for a hip-hop song in Spotify history, which is the Make Them Cry, and that surpassed Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us record. The second biggest streaming debut for a hip-hop album in Spotify history. And the first is his own with Certified Lover Boy, which is hilarious. He occupies 9 of the top 10 spots on the Billboard Hot 100, charted a record 42 songs simultaneously on the Hot 100. So all of his songs from those 3 albums charted in the Hot 100, which is crazy. The last person, I think the person that held the record for the most is Morgan Wallen at like 20 something. So he charted 42, all 42 songs. The first artist ever to earn over 400 Hot 100 entries. The next closest one is like 280 something. So he's like leaps and bounds above. But this record, I don't really care for because, you could chart a song at number 99 on the Hot 100 for 1 week and then it falls off and nobody cares about the song. So I don't really care about like, oh, this guy had these many entries on the Hot 100. Like in today's time with streaming, you can kind of do that. It's very easy. So to me, if you're entering songs at number 90 and number 87 and number 77 and 30, no, not 30s, never mind. The top 40s, I'm fine with. But anything out of the top 40s, I don't really care for because those records come and go. And nobody, right now, you can't name the number 67th song on the charts. You can't because you just don't, nobody really cares about those entries. But it's still great. It's cool to, have that record. It's just something there. Most top 10 hits for any hip-hop album in Hot 100 history. So, yeah, he's got, with What Did I Miss, he's got top 10 hits on the whole album, ICEMAN. Occupies the entire top 5 biggest streaming debuts for hip-hop albums in U.S. history. So, yeah, just record after record after record, which is huge, man. No matter how you view Drake, no matter if you like him, dislike him, whatever it is, we're witnessing generational records being broken. We're witnessing a guy whose longevity is unmatched. I mean, there's so many tweets, there's so many posts that you can see saying Drake is completely done after the Kendrick battle. Like there are people literally saying he's never going to have a number 1 record ever again, which is crazy to me because Drake is a hits machine. Like to bet against the guy who's had this long longevity because Kendrick Lamar made a diss record that blew up and went crazy is insane. I would never bet against them. I would never bet against Kendrick too. Like Kendrick is an insane artist. Like these guys are some of the best in music, especially in hip hop. And to bet against them in any way, shape, or form is crazy to me. I remember when Kendrick released Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, people were saying he's washed, trash. I actually kind of enjoyed the album for the most part, but a lot of people just, we're just hating on him and saying this is garbage. This guy's not making great music. And an artist has a miss here or there. Like for me personally, I think For All the Dogs was Drake's miss. I feel like that album, I didn't like anything about that album. And this is where I get to the conversation of, I feel Drake and Kendrick both benefited from this beef. And I'm going to explain why. So obviously with Kendrick, he came off of Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. Critically reviewing, it was great, but commercial and just hits-wise, people didn't really care. Most people moved on, and people felt like, does Kendrick really have it? So then obviously the battle happens. It boosts Kendrick. And I think Kendrick benefited way more from the battle than Drake did because obviously Kendrick won the battle. Whether you want to twist it in this way or that way, he did win the battle, and it skyrocketed him. Obviously, not like us being the most streamed song on Spotify with Drake just now beating it, but not like us skyrocketed, gave him a number 1 record, gave him a number 1 with Luther and SZA. GNX sold great. GNX was the most weeks in number 1 for an album for a long time. He was just breaking records himself after the battle and even during the battle. Then Drake takes his break because Drake, you got to think, For All the Dogs came out. It sold 402,000 first week, which is a great first week number. I'm not shitting on that first week number at all. But what we got to think about is Drake was averaging anywhere from 600,000 to 800,000 first week. To go to 400,000, that showed people were losing interest in his music. And the reception For All the Dogs wasn't that great. And then Drake himself was saying, hey, I need to take a break from music. I'm having health problems, stomach problems. And then the battle happens and it reignites. It starts to put a fire under Drake to keep going. And I think both of them sharpened each other. And I think both benefited it because obviously Kendrick benefited from the beef more and skyrocketed to another level again. But then Drake now, because of all these records, do you think Drake would have dropped 3 albums at once if it wasn't for the beef and him having issues with UMG? No, he would have never done that. Now, would he have gotten a number 1 record again? I believe so. Whether he beefed or not, Drake's a hit machine. No debating that. But there's a few things that Drake did that benefited him from the battle. I believe ICEMAN came out to be a great album because of the battle. You can hear a lot more bars, a lot more aggression, a lot more hunger in the music versus For All the Dogs, where I feel like he lost kind of that. He was kind of man, I've been at the top for a while. I just want to take a break. That's the way I looked at For All the Dogs, the way I looked at the whole situation there. So both benefited. For Drake, it put a spark under him again to, hey, I got to, you know what? Hey, you guys thought I was down and out because of this battle, because I lost that, took an L. Okay, I'm going to show you guys that I'm still that guy. And he did. Look at all these records he's breaking. And then for Kendrick, it was more like, okay, the reception to the album wasn't that great. Okay, let's spark something up. Boom, blows up, gets all these records broken, and it helps him a lot more, obviously, because he actually won the battle too. But for me personally, I make the Who Really Won beef videos, and I have my battle and my war, and I think for me, whoever wins this war, if we're going off of the Drake and Kendrick thing, is who runs this decade, because Kendrick was running this thing about, oh, I'm the best, period, doesn't matter. And then Drake saying I'm the best, period, doesn't matter. Well, Drake won the last decade. He ran that. Let's see who runs this next decade. Let's see if Kendrick has something under his sleeve to release in the following year or not. And can he dominate again after the battle? We'll see. I'm not betting against Kendrick or Drake. I think these two are leagues above a lot of rappers. I think they're in the top 10 of all time, maybe even top 5. I'm willing to bet that. But that's my take on it. Shout out to Drake for beating all these records, for all these numbers. I think whether you like them or not, man, if you're straight up hating on these records and saying, oh, it's not the same, it's not this and that, we're in a different era. First off, you got to get, you know how crazy it is to get 400. I think that ICEMAN did like 460 million streams. You know how crazy it is to get that? And people will say, oh, I think it's botted. I think there's only a certain amount that you can bot, right? You can maybe bot 20 to 30% of that. You can't bot 100%. Like, he can go on tour and sell out every single, and he's done that. So you can't bot that. There's no like botting that you can do to make those kind of numbers. So even with Kendrick, there's all bots. I'm like, dude, you guys, like, there's only to a certain extent numbers can be botted. And I believe that's 20 to 30%. 70%, you got to live up to that. Or at least 80%, you got to live up to that. So that's my take on it. I know there's going to be people hating, whatever it is, the people loving it, hating it. Amen. Records are meant to be broken, and Drake's the one that's doing it because he's putting in the work. Consistently releasing music. And whether you like the music or not, it's hitting with somebody because clearly the streams are coming in. To do 460 million or 480 million, whatever the number is in streams, means that a lot of people have to listen to this album and enjoy it. And they're doing that based off of all these charts that he's hitting. So that's my take on it. Let me know what you guys think of all these records. Let me know what you guys think of, just everything that's been going on. So yeah, let me know. That's it for today's video. If you guys want to support this channel further, you can do so at patreon.com/diverse mentality. For just $3 a month, you can get my videos uncut and raw the way I intended them to be, but couldn't because of YouTube. Plus, you also get access to our Discord community where we have a great community talking about hip hop and various other things. It's very dope. So only $3 a month. I'd really appreciate the support. Also follow us on social media at QuakeGW and at Diverse Mentality. Thank you so much for the support, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.